from the trip to China?
Yeah, good morning. I haven't really heard full kind of disclosure around an agreement or not, but I'd say that my hope is that, we do open the door and really I think what's not, what's more important is less selling chips to China, but more getting China to build on a US built platform and to get that CUDA software embedded in China and all of their friends. And I think that's most important and that's what's most critical for Jensen.
What do you expect on earnings next week?
We're going to get the same kind of beat and raise, and the market for the last kind of year has been ho-hum to that. I do think there are two things, though, to focus on. Number one, I do think they will announce a share buyback. They alluded to it in March, and we've done some work on this where if you're over $100 billion and you announce a buyback greater than 5% of your outstanding shares, and I think they will do so. Typically, on average, you've outperformed the S&P by 10 points in the next 12 months and 15 points in the next 24 months. So I think that will be important. And then the second one I think is really critical here is that compute is sold out. TSMC is one of the bottlenecks, and NVIDIA has the most share at TSMC. And so while the market is worried about competition to NVIDIA, I would highlight that they will outgrow everyone because of that relationship with TSM.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what will make this quarter different than others when they beat and raise and the market's kind of lackluster about the response. The stock has really taken off lately, but it's been in periods of stock relative, especially to some of these other chip names like the memory stocks.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, we've lagged for 9 months. We've just started to catch a bid. I would tell you long onlys are underweight to the benchmark. And so I think if you get a catalyst like a buyback to start getting shares moving higher, I think there will be investors chasing it. And, I would highlight that, NVIDIA right now is trading 15 times, what we think they'll earn next year, making it, the cheapest name in our coverage. And so we would wholeheartedly be buying it into earnings after earnings and throughout, 26 and 27.
One of the upgrades we got this week, read in part, many investors we speak with are pushing for a much larger dividend commitment, which we think the market would like because it will further broaden the shareholder base. We do have this discussion about people, running out of audience, so to speak. Would that enlarge it?
Dividend funds require a company paying a dividend, which NVIDIA does. So honestly, I don't think a larger dividend would move the needle. Those investors are already able to buy NVIDIA.
I mean, first of all, the whole issue of H200 sales to China by NVIDIA was not really part of the trade talks initially. And it was only because the previous White House AI czar, David Sachs, was able to get Jensen Huang in to talk to President Trump to convince him that this made sense to sell some advanced GPUs to China, not the most advanced, but really now 2 generations behind. But this originally wasn't part of the trade talks. But in this case, Jensen Huang, who originally was not invited on this trip, by the way, and apparently was very angry, was added to the trip by President Trump after the fact, and he hitched a ride in Anchorage, of all places, where Air Force One was stopped for refueling. So this is a complicated issue because, as you noted earlier also, the U.S. Commerce Department appears to have approved licenses under some strict conditions for Chinese customers like Baidu and Tencent and Alibaba and others like Lenovo, which would be the systems integrator for these GPUs. But China still has to approve these, right? So both sides have put conditions around the sale of these things for different reasons. In China, there's concern about reliance on still, relying on foreign technology. And so the requirements will be for those companies like ByteDance and Tencent and Alibaba to use some percentage of Huawei, Ascend, and other domestic GPUs, which they're already doing. And so I think that one of the reasons that Jensen Huang jumped on that plane was to try to make the case to the Chinese government that it makes sense for Chinese companies to have access to NVIDIA technology. Most of their developers were trained on NVIDIA hardware. And so he's making the argument on both sides that it's a good thing that at least some level of GPUs should be sold to China. Remember, he had at one point, NVIDIA had 95% of the data center market for GPUs in China. Now they're down to basically zero, and so he's making a strong case that NVIDIA should be able to sell not the latest and greatest GPUs, the Blackwells or the Vera Rubins, but these H200s, which are now 3 or 4 year old technology, but still important for Chinese companies, which are seeing huge demand for inference. And these H200s are perfect for inference. And so that's why they want to get their hands on these, because they're seeing huge demand domestically from consumers and industrial uses of AI. And so they're eager to get their hands on these. But the Chinese government is playing a little hard to get here. And I think my sense is after the summit, some of those H200s will flow to China.
Paul, perhaps there is a bit of naivety to my question, but I look at China and I look at the incredible human capital, the fact that there are a huge number of academics who have gone overseas to learn, to engage, and I wonder, bringing that human capital back, how long will it be before China can develop its own chips, which are as extraordinary as the Blackwell, for example?
No, Major, that's a great question, and it's a very complicated one. I wrote a whole paper pretty much on that topic in February, but it's an interesting dynamic because no country in the world, for example, has had to try to recreate large parts of the semiconductor supply chain, including things like the most advanced lithography machines, which are really the front end for manufacturing those high-end chips you mentioned, the GPUs and some of the really high-end chips that are used on smartphones, for example. But that's a really complicated technology. It's currently dominated, for example, by the Dutch company ASML. It has a complete monopoly on this technology. And it took them 30 years to develop this technology. So China is attempting to short circuit that kind of a 30-year process and get to some level of advanced lithography so it can manufacture those really high-end chips. And you may remember there was a report late December about this secret lab in southern China near Shenzhen that Huawei is likely running. And certainly there's a huge government-backed effort led by Huawei to develop this advanced lithography. But it's a very complicated thing, probably one of the most difficult technologies that humans have devised. There's things like optics and lasers and light sources. And I think they're making progress, as I note in my paper, but it's hard to tell when that's going to actually come online for commercial operations, right? Because you have to have more than just a lithography. You need all the other tools. You need a lot of chemicals and materials and photoresists, but they're working on all those. So my sense is that in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see at least the beginnings of some commercial operation that will use more advanced tools than the current companies like SMIC and Huahong have. But scaling that up so that multiple fabs in China can be using that equipment and supporting it 24 hours a day is really, really hard. But again, if any country can do it, as you know, it's China. China has a staple of STEM-educated personnel and engineers, and so they're trying to do this, and they will make progress.
They were looking to get the deal done with these H200 chips. They weren't able to get it done, but still, the stock has been on a pretty good move this week, and so we'll break this down. If we start with the 5-day, 15-minute chart, what we're going to see is the stock has really had a pretty strong rally, going from about 212 all the way up to 240, and it's been in a nice channel for the last 3 or 4 days, just kind of working its way higher. Not too strong of a speed from the intraday look, but moving kind of in a methodical way higher. It got all the way up to 240, but what we've seen more recently in the early morning trading, end of day, early morning trading this morning is that it has had a bit of sell-off. Those inflation numbers, the overall NASDAQ is lower and it's having an impact on NVIDIA. However, as this has pulled back from that 240 down to about 227, what we see with that RSI is it went into the oversold territory. It made a bounce and made a little bit of a higher bounce, which is with the price action dropping lower, RSI getting higher, we're starting to see a bullish divergence. And so with that bullish divergence, that's indicating that we have some bullish pressure coming into this stock, and that could do one or two things. Either that bullish pressure has to give up and we're going to see the stock continue lower, or the stock needs to bounce and rally it back higher. And there is a lot of interest in the 235 area. So it's going to be interesting to see when we get to this opening bell, how much, when we get a lot more activity coming in here, will the stock, take that bullish pressure and pop higher, or will it continue to drift a little bit lower? But so far, the week has been good, and it's still holding in there pretty good, Diane.
Okay, still holding in there pretty good. Let's widen out to a longer-term chart. What does that look like?
Yeah, longer term chart, what we see is it's been kind of on for most of the year, really taking it easy. It ran up. It had a good run up to about September of last year, but for the most part, for the last several months, NVIDIA has kind of been going sideways. You can see this channel that I drew in there between around it's a 168. It's kind of stuck between this 168 and about a 215 range that it was in. But what happened is recently it made a big run, which created a flag pattern. It went from about 168 up to about 215, and then pulled back and gave up a couple days worth, of movement, and it pulled back to about 192. Well, this flag pattern, if we extrapolate that out, we take that pull from the 168 to the 215, it gives a potential price target of about 246. And so if we look at the range it's been in for the last couple months, and we extrapolate that gives a 260 target. So two basic areas I want to just talk about is that 246 target, potential target, and a 260 potential target as the stock potentially moves higher. Now, if in fact that bullish activity does start to slide, it needs a little bit of a reprieve, we could see it possibly pull back that 215 and get a bounce. But right now, it's still holding, like mentioned earlier, it's still holding in strong. We're looking for that potential bullish bounce on the intraday chart. We'll see if that plays out on the daily chart and see if it can make it up to those potential targets, Diane.
Joachim, NVIDIA is trying to unlock those advanced chip sales in China, but the Chinese government wants to encourage domestic production. Is China actually going to buy these chips?
Well, they might temporarily, but they certainly are. Their main priority is to strategically become independent of NVIDIA and other Western manufactured chips. That might mean that their AI applications, for example, have to go a different route where it's less about computing power and more about efficiency. But that might be actually to their long-term advantage.
So do Chinese firms like DeepSeek need these NVIDIA's semiconductors, or is domestic technology there moving fast enough that US export controls have essentially failed to slow it down?
From what we can tell about DeepSeek's progress, they don't need the NVIDIA chips. The Huawei chips that they use in their data centers and for training their programs are somewhat slower and less powerful than the most advanced NVIDIA chips. But DeepSeek is the classic example of an AI company that is looking towards more efficiency gains rather than more complex models. And they do that because of the necessity to rely on Huawei chips mostly.
More broadly, what's the market hoping for from these talks? Now that US courts have slashed Trump's ability to levy tariffs anyway, are we going to return to the trade situation at the time he took office?
I think there's some optimism that there will be a bit of a relaxation in the tariff and the trade war. China actually has very good cards in that respect because Donald Trump comes with cap in hand, trying to get China to lean on Iran in its negotiations with the US about a peace deal. And China can use that leverage to get concessions from the US on the trade front.
Does China need to get oil moving through the Strait of Hormuz again as badly as the US does?
In a sense, no. Yes, China needs or imports more oil from Iran than most other countries, especially the US. But it is less than 5% of Chinese oil supply that comes from Iran. So the bottom line is not getting Iranian oil is a nuisance, but it is not critical for China.
Does that mean then that the war has tilted the tables in China's favor?
Absolutely. The very fact that Donald Trump and the Americans got bogged down in this kind of quagmire of a war with Iran, plus the fact that China played its cards wisely by not interfering on either side so far and acting as the stable adult in the room, has definitely enhanced China's geopolitical sway and has made it more attractive as a potential trade partner and political partner for a lot of countries in the emerging.
Dan, for an IPO of that size, of more than $4 billion, that is the best performance we've seen on a single day going back to 2000. Does it feel frothy, or is this a different moment?
Look, it doesn't. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. I mean, this is an AI revolution. And when it comes to the chip trade, that's going to continue to move higher because demand to supply, and we've talked about it from, NVIDIA, 10 to 1. And that ripple effect is across the board from inference to infrastructure. And that's what investors are focused on around the world. And this is something you said, it's really just the appetizer to what's going to be as we go into SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic, and others in terms of tech.
You are the bull on steroids, Dan. I think you'll be comfortable with that particular description of your approach to this market. When do you start to get nervous about what's happening here?
Look, and I get the sort of view. To me, if I was sitting in an office building and just looking at a spreadsheet, okay, then maybe that's how you could sort of, the bears, that's how they're looking at it. I go look at when I was in Asia just a few weeks ago, demand to supply has accelerated 20%, quarter over quarter. So when I see companies, if they start to slow down their pace of spending, that's where I start to get negative. But to some extent, it just continues to increase. And I think in this 9-inning game, baseball game, third inning, one out, man on second.
At this point, Dan, Cerebras is a bit different than OpenAI or Anthropic, given the fact that it produces chips, which it doesn't produce CPUs or GPUs. Last night, I was learning about wafers and wafer system engines, which is essentially the full page-sized chip that they sell. How much are we seeing a very different type of response in markets to the IPO of Cerebras that can't really foreshadow what we could see with some of the big IPOs coming later this year?
Sure, it's a great point. I mean, look, everyone, you can't put them all in the same bucket. But when it comes to inferencing and what we see in terms of the overall demand for the trillions of dollars spent, you need to power. And when it comes to the chips, that right now on the supply chain is not just about NVIDIA. We've talked about chip rally. We still think 15, 20% higher at least. From AMD, you've seen it go out to Intel, and obviously you've seen the reaction here. But I think it just speaks to the second, third, fourth derivatives around the AI trade. I mean, and that's our view. And I think software is included there. It's why I believe we'll be looking at NASDAQ 30,000 over the next 6 to 9 months. That's driven not just by big tech, by the second, third, fourth derivatives of what's going on in this revolution.
One thing people have noted, Dan, is that there are going to be winners and losers. You've talked about that as well. I think about some of the IPOs that are on deck and then some of the negative press around one name in particular, OpenAI, now in news with respect to a breakdown in the relationship with Apple. Are you getting a little more nervous that they're losing their thunder to Anthropic and that even with overall things really accelerating, that will be one loser potentially in the not so distant future?
Yeah, look, right now, I mean, the narrative is a bit negative, but I think that's actually much different than the reality. I think they're going to be one of the core winners when it comes to enterprise. They've obviously gone through a lot of changes relative to Microsoft and relative to some of these deals. You see the Apple news, the Musk trial. So we're going through one of those periods. But when I think about winners over the long term, I mean, they're at the centerpiece. And even though Anthropic right now, clearly the best model and what they've done is almost historical, I think you cannot paint these companies with a brush just based on near-term news. This is just the beginning. And OpenAI is going to be one of the foundations of the AI